Amy loved her college years. Varsity basketball, student leadership, lifelong friendships. But life got busy, and over time, she drifted away from her alma mater. Then, an email changed everything. A student, just like she once was, needed advice. It wasn't a donation ask. It wasn't a long-term commitment. Just a chance to help. Amy answered, suggesting a call. It took minutes, but for Jacqueline, it meant everything. A real connection. The advancement team saw Amy was engaged. They reached out, not for a gift, but to thank her, to invite her back into the community. Amy realized how much she missed being part of this world. She joined a panel. She met students. She felt the impact she could have. And when the time came, giving back wasn't a question. It felt like the next step. This is the power of Protopia. Not another alumni engagement platform. Not another fundraising tool. A smarter way to engage alumni where they are, creating real connections that lead to real impact. See the ripple effect in action. Visit protopia.co today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for listening to Alumless for June 20th, 2025. This is the Communicating Values and Vision for Scholarships edition. I'm Ryan Catherwood. I'm joined by founder and CEO of CMAC, Chris Marshall. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, Ryan, it's been a little while. We haven't been on together for about a month.
Yeah, we've had some very fine substitutes, Leah, helping us out.
Much better than me. I thought she was going to take my job full time.
Keeping the show going for everybody. What's on your weekend docket?
A little work, hopefully a little sun, because we've had nothing but rain for like 12 weeks in a row up here in Pennsylvania. I don't know about you guys, but we're hoping for a little sun and outdoor time with the family. So how about you?
Yeah, it's a hot, sweaty mess here in Virginia where I live. The kids are in various summer camps. So
Same here.
My son's actually at UNC basketball camp this week, which is pretty cool. You were just talking about the other day about meeting Michael Jordan at some point.
Yeah, that was one of the highlights of my coaching career. Not that I was involved in basketball. I was involved in swimming, and their swimming pool at UNC is connected by a tunnel underground to their basketball arena, and I got to meet the great MJ. It was amazing.
Great MJ. Cool. Well, those of you who are tuning in, as you know, we host a show here called Alumless, and we talk about constituent engagement strategies in education advancement. We are live today, so please do say hello and where you're listening in from in the comments of the LinkedIn event. We are also back up on YouTube. We've got a couple other apps, Chris, now are home to the podcast. So we're going to be on iHeartRadio and Amazon Music and Audify, and in addition to Spotify and
you really are going to be the rock star on the streets of New York next time, Ryan, when we're together.
Yeah. Well, we're grateful for Max Leiston and the team at Protopia for being our presenting sponsor of the show. Chris, we had a chance to connect back in New York City. This was actually last week. Time flies by. At the annual Washburn McGoldrick Client Conference, and we had the chance to connect with today's guest, Ted Probert, but also lots of our friends and other partners. Talk a little bit about coming out of that meetup. What were some of the headlines?
It was a great conference. I've been to 6 of the Washburn McGoldrick when we partner with that firm, as many folks know. Been to 6 of their client conferences, and this was by far the best one. In lots of ways, content was amazing. But then, like any conference, though, Ryan, when you go to a conference, the highlights are the in between the session time where you meet with people and can just talk, get a little therapy and some guidance on stuff you're dealing with. And those are always the highlights. It was great to bump into Ted. I hadn't seen him in several years, but the thing I took away from it is that he knows everybody in this business, given his background and where he's worked. So including the Washburn McGoldrick founders, Bill McGoldrick, Sue Washburn, Bill McGoldrick, he's known for years, and they got to reconnect there at the 30th anniversary. And the other cool thing is that he provided me this really cool gift. This is a challenge coin, I think is the correct term, but Ted will come on and join us. This says on the front, Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation celebrating 250th anniversary of the Marine Corps. And I was honored to receive this. It's in my collection of coins I keep behind me. And so thank you for this one. But I thought it was a great conference all around, right?
Yeah. Challenge coins. I love those. One of the things we talked about at the conference was the National Alumni Survey. And for those people who may sound slightly familiar, but maybe not so much, like what is the National Alumni Survey? What can you share about that?
Yeah. So this is the RNL study for the past 2 years. They rebranded it as the National Alumni Survey, sponsored by Ruffalo and Noel Levitt's RNL. Our good friend, colleague Howard Hebner, who spoke at the conference on this topic, has been the driving force behind it. Howard and Sarah Kleberger, who's with RNL, were the two main people on it. And it's been amazing. Its growth in just 2 years. We had over 20 schools, 50,000 responses. And it's a temperature check on the industry from 20 different colleges and university institutions, 50,000 alumni responses aggregated together to give us a sense of what are the attitudes about giving to nonprofit in general, but to higher education and alma mater. And it's really a cool instrument. And the fun thing about the announcement we made at the conference, Ryan, as you know, is that Washburn, McGoldrick, and CMAC are going to take this on with the NAS, Howard's product, the National Alumni Survey. And we're going to be the co-presenters, co-sponsors, co-authors of this new report every year from now on. And the goal is to get it to be next year 40 schools and 100,000 responses. So if you're listening and interested and want to participate in a national alumni attitudinal study about giving trends and the like, let us know. We would love to have you partnership on it. It will be produced by CMAC Washburn and Howard's work, of course. But we're also going to get corporate sponsorships to pay for this. So for institutions to participate, it doesn't cost anything. You can do this for free and get a really cool report on your institution and their attitudes compared to those national trends that we're seeing around annual giving. So it's quite exciting. We're really honored to be part of it. And kudos to Howard and a shout out special to Sarah for their work on getting this to the point where we are right now. Exciting.
Yeah, it's a great new project. Love working on it with Howard. All right. Well, welcome to Alumless. Ted Probert. Ted is the president and CEO of the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation. Hey, Ted, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great, gentlemen. Great to see you both again. And wonderful to see Chris and meet you, Ryan, at the Washburn McGoldrick conference. That was tremendous.
It was great to meet you too. Maybe we could kick things off just sharing a bit more about your work and that which is at the heart of the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation's mission.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So in 1962, there was a World War II Medal of Honor recipient who couldn't afford to send his son to college. There was a group of folks in New York City that were together for a dinner, and this story had been in the New York Times. And so 10 families raised $1,500 to provide scholarship support to this individual child. And that was the beginning of the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation. The essence, our mission is honoring Marines by educating their children. And now for 63 years later, we've supported over 57,000 students at $220 million.
Wow. 67,000 scholars through the program.
57,000.
57,000. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, lots of traditions with the Marine Corps. How do you balance honoring Marine Corps values while appealing to a broad philanthropic audience? And what are some of the key stories you're trying to share?
Yeah, so great question, Ryan. And as we all know, 1% of the American public serves in the military today. We've been for over 50 years an all-volunteer force. And, the Marine values of honor, courage, commitment are ones that, those families, these students that have grown up in these families embrace those values. And most of us that have served as a veteran, when you interact with somebody, the first thing that they say to you is, thank you for your service. Well, we appreciate that, but it's really, it's the families that are serving so much too. And the veterans are cared for in a number of meaningful ways. We feel that, our ability to be able to honor those families and their educational, the dreams of their students is so important. We're the largest provider of needs-based financial aid to members of the military. So it's pegged to the sergeant major of the Marine Corps salary. So any family who income is 123,000 or less, and the student has a GPA of 2.0 or above, and has honorably served and applies, is qualified, and we support everybody who's eligible who applies.
Wow. You probably just hit on it, but my follow-up question was going to be what messaging is resonating? So that notion of honoring the families and respecting the sacrifice that they have made is piece of it. But what are some of the challenges that when you think about different audience segments that you're reaching out to, and what messages are resonating with those different audiences?
Yeah, Chris, it's a great question. And I think that, kind of we've focused on, kind of higher education at times. We've focused on the Marines, but it's really about the why. The why do we exist? Marine families sacrifice for our nation. And we honor those Marines and those families by helping to educate their children. And the children of these Marines that have grown up in these households have embraced those. So in many ways, we believe these are the future leaders of this country that have kind of, and to give you a statistic on that, our graduation rate for our scholars is 91% compared to a national average of 53%
Right.
in 6 years.
Amazing.
So kind of what we say is a scholarship that's given with honor is treated with honor, that they, kind of, they recognize that, investors, what we call our donors, investors have given this gift and that they're going to take it seriously. They're not, going to college where they can, kind of party and do all that, but it allows them to enjoy a full college experience without having to take on multiple jobs or incurring a lot of debt. So many of them are graduating debt free. And we know that we all know the value of education is a tremendous springboard for greater success in life. So to be able to support these families and just the power of education, which is something, I've worked on for 30 plus years, but to be able to help these Marine families is important.
Yeah, very cool. So when you think about your two big segments of your audience would be your donors or investors, as you call them, but also 57,000 recipients of that award are out there making a difference. I'm sure some of them are now investors, right? Because they benefited from the experience themselves. But how do you think about engaging those two populations? What are your strategies in place for engagement?
Yeah, I mean, we really feel that our students are the very best ambassadors that we have. And so we do a number of events each year. We do 35 to 40 events a year because unlike a college campus, we don't have a physical presence. We can't bring investors to campus and put on something there. So we do these events around the country. But we promote our students as speakers to talk about the impact and the difference that gift has made in their lives, as well as kind of an expectation for them to help pay it forward. That we feel today of the 3,000 students we're supporting in this academic year is about 14 to 15% of the applicable pool that exists out there. So like all Marines, we don't quit till we accomplish the mission.
Yeah.
And that hill has still got a good ways to climb to get to being able to support, potentially 20,000 students out there who have financial need and can't afford college.
Ted, as we were first talking about it, I was thinking to myself, is there an alumni angle to all this? I mean, you have the former award recipients. Of course, you have non-active duty Marines. These groups sort of had shared experiences, and we build a lot of alumni engagement strategies off of the backs of shared experiences. Is there an alumni angle? Do you think about alumni in the context of your sort of organization?
We do, Ryan, and I think that it's actually an opportunity for us to expand and to think about it more broadly. Unlike a college, they don't have class distinctions, and so that sense of kind of pride that they've as they leave, kind of the Syracuse of the world or whatever, that they're but they do have pride in being the dependent of a Marine and having served there, and to knowing the value of it. The challenge for us has been that up until about 15 years ago, some of the record systems and our ability to kind of track some of those former scholarship recipients was a little bit difficult. Two, because in some cases, they might not have even really known they were getting support from. Maybe the parent had filled out, kind of the application per se. And our award levels are $2,500 a year to $10,000 a year, but fully renewable for 4 years. So in essence, $10,000 to $40,000 for each scholarship recipient. But I think that in some of those cases, if they were getting $1,000 and the cost of the college was, $15,000, they might not have really appreciated, kind of the impact. So I think we're doing much more of a job to connect them with the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation and articulating the benefits that they're getting on one side, but also the return on investment that the investors are getting and helping to change and shape those lives.
So 3,000 active scholarship recipients currently, that would be roughly 750 a year coming through. Is that my math right?
No, it's 3,000 a year
Per
at
year.
12.2 million in grants. But yeah,
Wow.
so yeah, but you're right. It's maybe about 750 in each class per
Cohort,
se.
right. That was where I was going. Is there
Yeah.
a cohort mentality? Do they come together at any point to be recognized or trained? I mean, I've worked with the Jack Kent Cooke Scholars Foundation and the Coca-Cola Scholars, and both of them bring those scholarship recipients into a moment where they're sort of blessed, indoctrinated into this class of scholarship recipients, and then they all go off to the different schools, but they have that moment where they were together. Do you guys do something like that?
Yeah, Chris, we don't do it on a scale as large as with all of the scholars, but every other year. So on July 28th of this year, we have a scholarship announcement ceremony, which is at 8th and I Marine Barracks in DC. And so we'll have about 60 students there. We'll have a number of investors that are there. We're kind of the Commandant of the Marine Corps, the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps are there. And so it's a great opportunity for us to kind of
Cool.
connect all the pieces together and to do so in a way that really makes it significant. And then but we rely heavily on our social media and other ways to, and I think that, kind of the best practices from colleges and universities are things that we're trying to develop and implement here. We didn't really even have an annual giving program until about 5 years ago. And so we started the Fidelis Fund as, kind of our annual giving program and as a way to connect people. And as giving is habit forming. If you get them connecting and realizing what they're, how they're making a difference.
Ted, I know a consulting firm that can help you
that's
build those
important,
engagement strategies when you're ready. I'm sorry, I was jumping over top of you there. Ted, I don't know if you heard
Yeah,
my
I know. I do too, and we're looking forward to engaging with that firm. So
I got a little timing glitch, which ruined my joke completely, but you got it, so I'm glad it worked. I have a follow up on so for your investors, you mentioned already the power of a student being your spokesperson. What do you do to connect a scholar with a investor? Is there communications throughout the year regularly? Are there moments where they gather?
There are several of those, Chris. For those that higher level investors, so kind of for $25,000, they're having a personal. We're assigning a student as kind of to those investors, and they're getting a message, kind of a thank you letter from the students to higher level investors, where we actually have dinners and lunches and gets-togethers in that regard. So at the very highest end, we have an investor who created the Semper Fidelis Leadership Scholars, which are the rare merit-based scholar for us. Those are $20,000 a year over 4 years, so they get $80,000. And we have a dinner with all of those Semper Fidelis Leadership Scholars and the donor, the investor, every year. We do that on smaller scales in other parts of the country, as well as I said, always trying to have it at all of our events, having a number of student scholars there that can be interacting at the event tables and sitting at the dinners with our investors.
Ted, how do you think about your organization's sort of national and regional strategy for engagement and philanthropy, right? There's probably pockets of alumni in major areas or those who received the scholarships, right? There's probably larger concentrations of donors in certain areas. How do you sort of think about regional versus national strategies?
Yeah, Ryan, it's a great question. And I think that this is where the benefit of having worked in educational fundraising at some great schools over, kind of 25 years really helped, because we had been so focused on events here previously, as I mentioned, the 35, 40 events, but they were regionally based and they're all consuming with regards to, kind of activity from the staff. And so a transition to much more of a regionally based major gifts model. Looking to, we know that, we're in a relationship based business, and the more that we can personally interact face to face with folks. So we've we've still got folks that are raising events, revenue through events, but we're also really looking to have regional major gift officers that are engaging with the investors and boots on the ground in a much more effective way. And there's still, staffing wise, we just don't have enough, bandwidth to be able to get, all of the folks. But I think we're doing a much better job of outreach and engagement across the entire country. And right now we're just really focused in the continental United States. There are probably marine investors, there are probably folks who care about it outside of the country, but that's another evolution down the road. So
Yeah.
Well, what about peer-to-peer fundraising? Just out of curiosity, do you do some of that?
I think it's an area of opportunity for us to do
Yeah.
more in that regard. I think that for the first time, we've now have 2 former scholarship recipients that are on our board of directors, and that are starting to help, kind of raise that awareness. I think in, as I mentioned, the Fidelis Fund, and doing more kind of peer-to-peer solicitations in that regard. And I think that it's something I'd like to be able to think about as we, kind of move in the years ahead, is how do we get our students who were the former recipients to be, doing a better job of, helping the next generation of classes and keeping all of their alumni. Maybe it's a regional focus, or, you could even have regional competitions of some of the different states, or maybe we support students at about 1,200 different colleges. So it's hard to kind of think in terms of, some of the colleges competing against each other. But maybe Chris, you got some good ideas there that of ways we could be more effective,
Absolutely, yes, Ted. You know the answer to that. I'm going to go back to something you said earlier. You've been there for 7 years in the role, correct?
I've been at the foundation for 7 years. I was the chief development officer for 3 years and have been the president and CEO for 4 years.
4 years. So somewhere in your tenure is when the annual giving program, which you said is 5 years old, started. So you were there, and you're now running a 5-year-old program that's raising, I'm guessing, pretty large sums of money that were not in the totals previous to that, right?
Yeah, we're and maybe it was 6 years ago. It was something I started, kind of soon after as starting as the chief development officer. And we're raising about $3 million right now a year in the Fidelis Fund. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity for growth in our baseline support. We'd been focused more on kind of the major gifts as it pertained to the events, but our grants program's bringing in 2.5 to 3 million. We're doing a lot in digital marketing, as well as kind of in our we've gotten smarter there too, with kind of directed asks and all those kinds of things to some of our live bunts and side bunts. And so the reality is that the business is the same whether you're working at a college or university or a private secondary school or an organization like this. And that was what was interesting too, because when I joined, they wanted to have, kind of in that search process, they wanted to go back to having a Marine general. Many of the organizations, whether it's the Heritage Museum or Marine Corps University, have Marine generals as, kind of their CEOs. And I think that what they realized is we're first and foremost a nonprofit business that's focused on raising $25 million a year and then awarding the scholarships. And so having that nonprofit fundraising experience has certainly been beneficial.
Yeah. Very cool. I want to make sure we go back. We went off script there, which I always do, Ted, but I want to get back to our script and ask you this question. We heard about this partnership you had with the Baltimore Ravens, given your proximity there. The Ravens, I'm assuming, are near your headquarters, but this was something involving cleats. And I don't know the full story. I just got wind of it, but can you share what happened and what that looked like?
Yeah, so we are in the third year with the Baltimore Ravens as their salute to service partner. And a couple of years ago, as we were trying to increase visibility and awareness about the foundation, our communications firm had said, kind of the NFL might be a really good platform for you to engage with. And at first they had mentioned about the Los Angeles Rams, but and the Rams had come off the, kind of the Super Bowl win. But the reality was it's far from our market. They also wanted an extraordinary amount to from corporate support there. So the Ravens actually ended up being a great organization for us to partner with. One, as you mentioned, it's proximity. I also think that the Baltimore Ravens, their culture and values are very much like the Marine Corps. They're about grit and dedication and loyalty and perseverance. I've also, just as I've gotten to know that team and its staff, an extraordinary organization. I mean, they're first class through and through. And so we have a game each November that they promote at the M&T Bank Stadium. But also as part of that, the NFL has its Cleats for Cause. And so this past year, the long snapper on the team, who didn't have kind of a passionate cause that he adopted the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation. So he had the cleats there that, with the coin logo that you showed, that, basically, and then they raffled off the cleats. And I don't know at this time, how much they got for the cleats, but it was nice to be able to be a part of that program and the visibility of that for the foundation.
Well, Ryan and I are huge Eagles fans, but we'll give props to the Ravens for doing a really cool thing right there. I mean, and I do know what you mean about their culture and their. I've always respected that franchise, so very cool. I'm going to
Eagles for both of you guys for the Super Bowl win last year, then, because as a Giants
we had a lot
fan,
to do with it, Ted. We had a lot to do with that.
Brutal couple of years, for the Giants.
So, Ryan, I'll kick it back to you to wrap us up, and we'll go to the second half. Ted, we'll hang on with you, and we'll bring you back. But Ryan, share with us. We have Alumless World coming up with a cool guest from the UK and a good friend of both of ours from the US in a couple of weeks out on the West Coast. Share the upcoming guest on Alumless, Ryan.
Yeah, next Friday, we have Tess Nixon Spiller. She's a UK-based fundraising strategist and coach, and she's an excellent insights on leadership and management. We're going to take the 4th of July week off, and then actually we'll be back the following week with Scott Biederman, who's the vice president for university advancement at the University of the Pacific. So both excellent guests, excited about that. And we're going to go record our bonus segment with our special guest today, Ted Probert from the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation. And we'll be right back. So those of you who are listening to the podcast edition, we'll see you after the break. And for those of you watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, you should pick up the podcast edition. But we'll be back in your feed in a week's time. So thank you for listening.
Ted, thank you so much. Loved the conversation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.